No mention about iconic cars from the 1950s would be complete without discussing the little-known Kaiser Frazer Corporation. Henry J. Kaiser was first and foremost an industrialist, making his fortune supplying the U.S. Navy with ships and other watercraft during World War II. When the war ended, Kaiser was in a unique position to continue on as an independent automaker. He partnered with automotive executive Joseph W. Frazer, whose expertise was in developing and marketing new models. He had an extensive background with Chrysler, General Motors, Graham Page, Saxon, and Willis Overland, where he'd collectively acquired the necessary skills to become president of the newest automotive enterprise. This was an important position because the U.S. auto industry was in turmoil after the war, and men with management experience were needed at every manufacturer. In 1947, Kaiser acquired all the assets of Graham Page, a company that was unable to survive the post-war years. Frazer was an executive with this company, and soon the two men formed a partnership which would prove to be mutually beneficial, even if only for less than a decade. Frazer soon left the newly formed company in 1949 and was quickly replaced as president by Kaiser's son Edgar. This was a time when the Big Three were unable to meet the post-war pent-up demand for cars and trucks, even though the Big Three had many plants throughout the country, plus the required large and skilled workforce for production. They were still unable to supply enough product to satisfy demand until the end of the decade. The newly formed Kaiser Frazer Corporation needed a large plant that was strategically located to receive raw materials and had an established transportation network. By 1942, Ford had built a plant in Willow Run, Michigan, to produce the B-24 Liberator bomber aircraft. By 1944, Ford was rolling a Liberator off the Willow Run production line every 63 minutes, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Before the hostilities ended, Ford sold the plant to the government and leased it back from them through the rest of the war. Once over, Ford decided not to renew their lease of the plant, so Kaiser Frazer quickly gained ownership. After no longer needing the plant in 1955 because of other business ventures for both men after the shuttering of the company, General Motors bought it, updated it, and continued to use it as a transmission plant until 2010. The new company recognized the need for a highly visible flagship model. Mr. Kaiser himself came up with the concept of the Henry J because he knew a large post-war market segment would be looking for a reliable and economical car in a time when many American families were now buying a second car. However, at the time, most could only afford a used car. Kaiser surmised that people would buy his new car, which would have to be priced at, or even a little below, the average used car's retail price. Commonly called the two-car family, every auto company wanted that second family car to be theirs. Kaiser proposed a car that could be built inexpensively and could be sold at a price that was not only affordable, but still produced higher profit margins for the company. To finance this new auto building venture, the federal government agreed to loan the new corporation money to get it started. However, this much-needed seed money would stipulate various specific details of the proposed new vehicle. Kaiser Frazer committed to designing and building a car that in its most basic form would retail for no more than $1,300, which included all taxes and a retail delivery prep charge. Also, it would need to seat at least 5 adults, be capable of going at least 50 miles per hour for sustained periods of time, and be available for retail sale no later than September 30th of 1950. Kaiser reasoned that he could meet all requirements, but now he would immediately need a new car without the time delay to develop it properly, not to mention the exorbitant costs involved in a total new car design. The new company opted on a revised design first developed by American Metal Products, one of the industry's major suppliers of frames and other things. The famous automotive designer Howard "Dutch" Darren would lend his considerable talents to the project. A few years later, he and Kaiser would also team up to produce the iconic Kaiser Darren sports car. Darren quickly rendered a redesign of AMP's initial design, but he added his signature dip in the beltline and dips to the centers of the windshield and back glass. To cap it off, he added small tail fins in keeping with the trend of tail fins seen throughout the industry at the time. The car looked quite contemporary and was expected to compete well in its new market segment, even though it would only be available as a fastback two-door sedan with a 100-inch wheelbase. To accomplish the low price objective, this new model, now officially called the Henry J after Kaiser Frazer's co-founder, was designed to require the least possible parts and built from the fewest possible components. To save body stamping costs, early Henry J's did not even have trunk lids. Owners had to access the trunk by folding down the rear seat. Another cost-saving measure was to only offer the car with fixed rear windows. Also lacking in the basic car was a glove box, armrests, a passenger side inside sun visor, and flow-through ventilation. Of course, throughout production, Kaiser Frazer would offer these things and many more as accessories, which would also increase profits for the company. But as Henry Kaiser correctly surmised, additional sales outlets would need to be established to market and sell his new car, because the dealer network that Kaiser Frazer had was a mere fraction of the majority of other manufacturers, including the Big Three and larger independents like Hudson and Studebaker. The Allstate would be the collaboration of Henry J. Kaiser and retail giant Sears, Roebuck & Company as another means to mass market his slow-selling Henry J. Sears was also looking for a car they could christen as their own and then sell it at their multi-thousand retail centers across North America. For their millions of customers who didn't have a store nearby, they could also conveniently shop their vast catalogs, as they had for years. After 3 years of negotiations between Kaiser Frazer and Sears, the production of the Allstate was announced on November 20th, 1951, by Sears Merchandising Vice President Theodore Hauser and Kaiser Frazer Administrative Vice President Eugene Trefethen. The 3-year delay was also partly due to resistance from existing Kaiser Frazer dealerships fearing direct competition with Sears. Soon that delay would lead to the end of the partnership in a little less than a calendar years and 2 model years. The deal would designate Kaiser Frazer as supplying the Henry J to Sears, but optioned and built to Sears specifications. As mentioned earlier, the in-house Sears brand at the time was Allstate. They offered various insurance policies, tools, auto parts, tires, and more, all under that brand name through Sears. The marketing slogan for this new car was, quote, "Your one brand new car for $52, Allstate," unquote. The Allstate was essentially a Henry J with several notable differences that included Allstate badges on the hood and rear deck and a more upscale interior. More interior niceties included custom armrests, 2 sun visors, an exclusive instrument cluster and bezel, and a horn button, all doing their job to convince the occupants they were not inside a Henry J. The standard Allstate interior material was made from tightly twisted strands of paper that were woven together and then coated in plastic, which proved to be unusually durable and attractive. This enhancement eliminated the need for seat covers. Aftermarket seat covers were popular accessories in the 1950s. Many were later made of this material to provide durability. Under hood, all engines were painted in what was called Sears blue, essentially a medium to lighter blue color. On the exterior, observers quickly noticed a functional trunk lid, complete with a lock, along with revised door locks and keys, and special parking and tail lamp assemblies. Finally, Specialty wheel covers were found at all four corners. The most distinguishing feature of the Allstate over the Henry J was a unique two-bar grille and a jet plane hood ornament that was imagined by veteran stylist Alex Tremulous, who had come to Kaiser Frazer from the Tucker Corporation. Tremulous described it as a rush job, including the Allstate logo with an outline map of the United States. Every Allstate was painted Sears blue as well. Other than the Allstate being a bit more comfortable than its Henry J counterpart, the main difference, at least mechanically, is that the Allstate models were equipped with Allstate brand tires, spark plugs, fan belts, and batteries, all with their own Sears triple guarantee warranties. Like the Kaiser Frazer Henry J, the Allstate was offered in only one body style, as a Series 4 or a Series 6. For 1952, the Series 4 came in the best-selling Model 111 Standard and the Model 113 Deluxe trim versions. A basic Model 110 was a model that didn't sell well and was soon dropped. The Series 6 Basic was less expensive than the better-trimmed Model 115 Deluxe. For 1953, the standard model was not offered in the Series 6, but the Series 6 was now only offered in the upscale Deluxe Model 215. It was the most popular Allstate that year. At first, the Allstate was offered only in the South and Southwest United States, with plans to expand distribution as demand for the product grew. That never happened. While some of the larger Sears outlets tried to stock at least one sample of the car, most were built on demand by Kaiser Frazer, which then made delivery to the outlet where they were sold. Kaiser Frazer urged its dealers to service Allstate cars when asked. Dealers were displeased to see their cars sold by another outlet, especially since the Allstate had more standard equipment and featured an amazing-for-the-time warranty on many of its high-wear components, yet sold at a lower price than the Henry J. Sears marketed the car as the lowest-priced full-size sedan on the U.S. market. However, Sears did not accept trade-ins from Allstate buyers, and there was certainly a reluctance to buy a car through a department store where service would be completed by the Sears Automotive Service Department found in many stores. The engines were supplied by Willis Overland. Series 4 cars used a 134 cubic inch L-head inline 4-cylinder, producing 68 horsepower, while the Series 6 were powered by a 161 cubic inch L-head inline 6-cylinder engine that was rated at 80 horsepower. A 3-speed manual transmission was standard for both engines, with overdrive being available for an additional $104. The entire Henry J program proved to be a major sales disappointment for Kaiser Frazer. Leftover first-year models were hastily modified with an outside Continental-style spare tire along with an upgraded interior. These revised models would debut in 1952 as the Vagabond. Over at Sears, disappointing sales would have that partnership end by the end of 1952. Just 2 model years where sales totaled a mere 2,363 cars in both series. When Kaiser and Willis Overland merged in 1953 to become Kaiser Willis, the Jeep was the only marque that was profitable. The Henry J was discontinued for 1954 after just 3 model years of production, in an attempt to again capture a portion of the economy car market. Willis would offer a model called the Aero Series, and continuing that car through the merger and up to 1955. To this day, a fully restored 1953 Allstate can be found on display at the corporate headquarters of Allstate Insurance in Northbrook, Illinois. Today, both the Henry J and to a lesser extent the Willis Aero cars are in big demand with hot rodders. They make great looking and handling smaller modified cars. Even in the late 50s and into the 60s, drag racers scooped them up because they were lightweight, had a short wheelbase, and were plentiful and cheap. Kaiser was about 10 years premature when he predicted that Americans would demand a smaller, more economical car. Well, tell us in the comments what you think about these cars and Kaiser Frazer's business plan to sell them. Have you ever seen one? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.